Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Senior News Editor of Retail Insider, and joining me today is Dustin Fuhs, who is Editor-in-Chief of Retail Insider. Thanks, Dustin, for joining us today.
It's a blast. I always enjoy coming on to the show, and we get a chance to talk about some really interesting things. Because yeah, our world never stops.
It's true. And the topic today we're going to talk about is the do's and don'ts of getting media coverage. Now, we get, oh my gosh, how many emails do you figure you get a day, Dustin, in terms of companies or PR companies looking for coverage?
So the reputable ones, where they are reaching out specifically for coverage in our publication, we're talking anywhere from 1 to 200 every single day. In addition to that, we've got the spray and pray method of PR firms that just decide to send emails to every single person on their email list, including to you and me and to every other email that we get. And it's weird. And then in addition to that, we have all of the other pitches that come from various sources from like Newswire. And then there's just our own investigative journalists. Like we go out and we get the news. We're not just sitting around waiting for pitches.
Yeah, the ones I like are the ones from like Timbuktu somewhere, and looking for coverage of something that you look at and you shake your head and going, why? Why even bother?
Yeah.
Anyways, so with all those emails, okay, let's talk about what companies should do and what they shouldn't do if they're hoping to go right through all that mass of emails and actually reach us with an idea that clinks in our heads. What's the number one thing for you that companies or PR companies should do in their pitch to you to get media companies? The first and the most important thing they should do.
The best thing that anybody can do is know who you're pitching and pitch with the knowledge that we are running with it as soon as it arrives. So if a PR firm reaches out and says, we're looking at getting coverage, don't be shocked if I turn around within 5 minutes and it's assigned to a journalist and we're looking for coverage for an interview that day.
Yeah.
That's the biggest lesson that we can share, is that when something comes through, it's going to be actioned. If it's something that we can use, it's going to be actioned very quickly.
I want to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to also ask you about the story ideas of the story pitch. What are you looking for? From these people. I know you're not looking for the 15th flavor of an ice cream shop. Like what makes it a story for you?
Yeah, so we live in the world of guarding our readership. So in the respect of our readership, we're looking for something that adds to their day, their business intelligence, their insights. We're not going to regurgitate every single press release that goes out. It's not effective to our readership. So on my radar, I'm always looking at something that we can tell a bigger story with. If a pitch comes through and we've seen it everywhere and we know that the story is out there, how can our newsroom turn that into something that's different, that adds value to our readership?
Okay. So let's talk about timeliness. I know that's one of my pet peeves is press release comes out or a media company reaches out to you and as you said, yeah, we want to do the story, but getting that interview sometimes takes weeks. I sit there and I scratch my head and say no. And you know what? If it's an actual news story, we had a good example of that just yesterday. I'm not sure when this is going to run, but yesterday, Loblaw announced, $2 billion investment, so what, 750 jobs, new stores, all that stuff, and all that. You know what? When something like that comes out, we're jumping on it right away, right?
Yeah, and we also live in the world where we focus on embargoes. I think that the best method that folks can do, especially in the press side, is reach out and put us under embargo, so it gives us time to conduct those interviews before the press release is live. As soon as
Mhm.
the press release goes live, there are other journalists and other publications that
Yeah,
will not reach out and want interviews. They're just going to write based off of that
yeah,
press release. And
yeah.
that's not us.
Yeah, that's not now. When you look at another aspect of stuff that comes through, whether it's a news release or it's a pitch by email, photos. Now, I'm the writer, so I'm just dealing with written content and send it over to you. But you're the man that has to put it all together in a pretty looking way, and visually appealing way. Does it drive you crazy when those photos aren't there? Like even simple things like you're asking for a headshot of the company's CEO and nowhere to be found.
Yeah. And then it goes live. And then they reach out to us and say, actually, can you use
Yeah,
this headshot instead of this? And I'm like, where was this when I was
yeah,
putting together the story? That happens on a day-to-day basis. I think the lesson that we can give to press, to PR firms and to communications is that visual is more important than anything in today's scrollable media landscape.
yeah,
If you don't have a new and updated photo, and it could be as basic as a sign or a storefront, but if you don't have that, then you're losing part of your story. You're giving someone else, a newsroom, an editor, the opportunity to tell whatever story that they would like. And
yeah,
that photo could be outdated.
yeah. Yeah, and that happens quite often, not just with us, but with any media outlet. So a checklist. What would be your checklist that a press release must always have?
So the number, so if we're going through it, they must have the dates that are important for the media. When is it happening? Where is it happening? Who can we contact?
Yeah,
In addition to that, we want to make sure that the images are correct for the news outlet. Horizontal images are very important with the current Google landscape. They haven't started to pull vertical photos. So if you have a horizontal photo, it helps everyone. In
yeah,
addition to that, one of the things that we talk about all the time is if a press release comes out on a day that we're not publishing, how
mm,
do you deal with that? Retail Insider publishes from Monday to Friday, but we're scheduling stuff from Sunday through Thursday. If you send something on a Friday afternoon, the
mm,
24-hour news cycle could actually turn that into something that we won't be able to action it until 3 or 4 days later.
yeah,
So we want to know what's happening, where things are at, basic journalist, stuff. But then in addition to that, we want to know what's the hook? What turns this from a story that is local into something that is newsworthy for the
yeah.
national media? And that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah, I want to go back to the timeliness thing, but what often bothers me, I guess, as a journalist, is I see the press release, and the CEO of a company is quoted in the press release, and then you want to talk to the CEO, and guess what? No, the CEO is not available, but we're going to give you the marketing person or something like that. And to me, that's I almost want to say, no, forget it, right? I'm not going to do this story. Like, tell us why, or tell them why it's important that, you know what, if you got a press release and it's important news for you, why the big chiefs would be talking about it.
The CEO and COO and the owner and the person who is leading the brand, they can talk about the concept. They can talk about why this is important. They can talk about the reasoning behind strategies. They also are media trained. They know where to go with certain elements. When we start going into having the director of sales or the director of marketing or a spokesperson, the issue is that you lose in translation the excitement that this press release is going out.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, when you said, having the marketing person, having the salesperson on, they can be involved. We're not saying that it's one or the other,
Yeah.
but if we have the opportunity to talk to the person who's making this decision and making the headlines, we're not going to be as excited to talk to the director of sales because we know what they're going to say before it even goes out.
But let's also think about this as well, like from a readership point of view, and and getting all the metrics and all that stuff. You know what? The CEO of a company is going to draw more people to that story than the director of marketing is, right? If they're talking.
100%. And we see this every single time that there's a press release that comes out and the contact person is media at or admin at. We lose that opportunity to
Yeah.
close a story as quick as possible because we have to go through layers and layers and layers of conversations back and forth. One of my pet peeves is when a PR professional comes and says, "Can you supply questions?" Well, if we are going off of the news release that was put out there and you are approaching us for coverage, then the coverage is on what you have put out into the news.
Yeah. I'm often, I often would like to respond to, because I get that all the time, but I would like to respond with the, how many 5 Ws and
Yeah, the who, what, where, why,
yeah,
how.
yeah, yeah, there's the questions.
Yeah. And that's as
In
basic as
essence,
possible.
those are the questions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we're setting up interviews with CEOs or with folks who understand the platform and the opportunity, that's when the stories get really interesting because they can take a who, what, where, when, how, and turn that. They're the masters of spin themselves because they're so good at this that they can turn it into a headline-worthy story that is actually of interest.
Now, let me ask you, from a journalist perspective, we often get the pitches that come from third party, right? We don't get it from the company itself and whether their marketing or their PR or communications. We get it from a third party. Uh, you know, I find, and no offense to those companies, those communications companies, but I find that adds another layer of, uh, I don't know, a delayability
I'm
in facilitating something,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
How do you deal
that's
with that?
something that you and I deal with on a day-to-day basis, and we've started to just go direct,
And
and
that's
it's
the
so
thing.
much easier.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say. Like what I'm finding, unfortunately, today, more and more, and again, I don't want to paint a brush for everybody on this, but there's certain companies and PR companies that become more. I don't know if they think of themselves more as a gatekeeper as opposed to a facilitator, right? And from a media perspective, and you can talk about this, Dustin, I want those PR companies to be facilitators.
100%. If a PR firm is reaching out on behalf of a client, the goal for that discussion is here is the news, here is where things are going, here's how I'm going to facilitate this news to make your life easier.
Yeah.
Here's what we're gonna set up the interview. We're gonna make sure that you have visual assets. We're gonna make sure that you have the printed copy of the press release in advance. Keep in mind, we always want to deal in advance. If something is already out there, the
Yeah.
news conversation turns. But the external PR, it does come back to relationships. You and I have worked with some
Yeah. That's
amazing third-party press relations folks, and they are incredible for what they do. They know exactly what we're going to ask. They know timeliness. And if something goes wrong, they're the first to communicate that it wasn't because they didn't ask on our behalf.
yeah. Yeah.
But there is an element to what is the facilitation of these third parties.
And as you know, you alluded to that, to this as well, is that it's not I think, personally, and yourself and the brand itself, Retail Insider, we're known out there, to be frank, and we've got a reputation, da 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 da. So these CEOs and presidents of companies, they know who we are.
Yeah,
And I have often, if I've hit a roadblock, I often go straight to them. And the funny thing is, I go straight to them. They respond right away.
100%. The
And
number
and
of
I
times
sit
that you
there
and
and
I have talked
I shake
about
my head.
individual brands,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I sit there and shake my head and going, you know what? Companies are spending who knows how many thousands of dollars to get PR coverage. And the roadblocks are being set up. And when I can just go on LinkedIn and take the CEO of Mario's widgets, and he'll respond right away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's some elements that we're going to get into, especially in 2024, talking about the current facilitation of third party PR,
yeah,
how everything is relationships, and on my end, it's what happens when PR moves on. Like if they are no longer representing a client, that's something that's been happening a lot more. Really good PR are able to connect. The
yeah,
PR that have issues or have something else, the response is we don't represent this client anymore, and then
yeah,
there's no furthering of a story.
yeah,
But those are all things that come in on a day-to-day basis. And you and I, we're going to have fun in 2024 because a lot of people are wanting to get into Retail Insider, and what we don't want to have happen is we're at a conference or we're sitting on a panel with someone and they ask, "Oh, can we get into Retail Insider?" And we show them our email. And
yeah,
we go into this world of, well, we tried last year, but if you look at this, email from this
yeah,
PR firm, they said that they weren't interested.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I guess everything we've talked about here in terms of facilitating getting media coverage in publications like us becomes even more important now, right? Because we've seen, where media is going in general. We've seen the mainstream media dying, basically, right? All we have to do is point to the Bell situation a couple of weeks ago now, of how
Yeah.
many people chopped, how many broadcasts chopped, etc., happening across.
Acquisitions.
Pardon?
Acquisitions as recently as yesterday, Curiosity was purchased.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, and then
So
the other thing too is, and I've been talking about, is the online legislation, which is hurting smaller papers, and I posted something on my own Facebook the other day about that. Where some of these small publications are hurt because of this, and they're basically going by the wayside.
yeah,
So what we've talked about, this long-winded way to get around back to this, is the importance of facilitating all this stuff to get into the media coverage, because it's tough to get into the media these days because of all that.
yeah, and being available, being accessible, and knowing what the individual media outlets are looking for makes your life as internal communications and external communications so much easier. The best way that I think you and I have ever had this conversation is if you're unsure about how to get into a publication, reach out. pick up the phone, talk to someone, send an email. It's so much easier for us to respond in that world than to hear about it afterwards that, oh, we wish that we could have been into Retail Insider or
Yeah.
into any other publication. We are very available for Retail Insider. It's as simple as sending an email to insider@retail-insider.com. It's very basic.
All right, super. Thanks, Dustin, for joining us today.
Cool. We will chat soon. I'm sure about it.
Very well. Thanks a lot. That was Dustin Fuhs, who is editor-in-chief of Retail Insider. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, senior news editor of Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.